Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. But you also find out through time, what's the real reason for fights happening or fights not happening. Now, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, right? Let me close my door because, we need to talk about this. All right. Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, man. The rematch didn't happen, and we know that. But there was different people reporting on why Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford didn't happen. They were saying that cataract surgery, that it's more than just eyesight. Maybe it has something to do with not having the money there to pay these fighters, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't seem that the money was the chief reason. The cataract surgery was the chief reason. The damage Spence incurred wasn't the chief reason for the rematch not happening. Terrence Crawford went out there and he was talking to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. And he said, I'm going to tell you this, right? Whenever you have these fighters talking, I'm not there, right, to know what really happened between promoters, sanctioning bodies, fighters. So when a fighter says something, or anybody says something, I always say, take it with a grain of salt. But when Terrence Crawford speaks, I tend to believe what he says. And when he said, in particular about the rematch not happening, because he just really never heard nothing from Spence and Spence's team. It was pretty much radio silence on their end. And I think that's foul. If it happened the way Crawford's saying it happened, I do believe that. Because there were all kind of articles being published about Errol Spence. And of course, a lot of the boxing fans were concerned about the beatdown that Errol Spence took at the hands of Terrence Crawford. There's some fans who felt like, hey, that was just a bad night in the office for Errol Spence, that he would get the rematch and he'd be victorious. But the bottom line is what we're seeing now is that obviously Errol Spence and his team, they didn't want to do the rematch for obvious reasons. Then you were hearing the issues about it was going to be at 154 and there wouldn't be any belts on the line and the IBF stripped Crawford. There's all kind of stuff was happening and being said. But the bottom line is now when you take a look at it, Errol Spence is still inactive. Just think about him and Fundora. I don't even know if that's going to really happen. I'll be honest with you. He doesn't, who knows, I don't know who he's training with. Okay? But the bottom line is Crawford is still full steam ahead. But this is the problem I have, right? Because of Errol Spence and his team and their reluctance to engage Terrence Crawford and to just be straightforward with him and say, hey, look, we have no intentions on rematching you in December. Just get the lawyers involved and just void the contract. They didn't do that. That being said, now Crawford is going to go into a fight with, Israel Machomov, right? August 3rd, and Crawford's going to be coming off of a year of inactivity, going into probably the biggest fight of his career. And for me, Crawford is cool as a cucumber, but you could tell it still bothers him a little bit. To me, I think that's horrible that Crawford is coming off of a year of inactivity going against a fighter who's been active and who's, arguably bigger and arguably stronger. At least that's what we believe, right? That being said, if Crawford were to lose to Machomov, some people feel Errol Spence should take some of that blame. Because this is the thing about Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. Because for the concentric few that feel that, well, Terrence Crawford made a choice to sit back and wait to see what Spence was doing. As a result, the consequences that he's having to deal with now of inactivity, that's his fault. Look, I don't agree with that. it's not his fault. But I do believe, right, that Crawford wanted to be as fair as possible to Errol Spence, because Crawford will tell you the position he's in right now, as far as his career as a boxer, he would not be in this position if Errol Spence would have went with his advisors and chose not to fight Terrence Crawford. Crawford wouldn't be in this position, and Errol Spence wouldn't be in the position he's in. It would have never happened. Okay? So I think Crawford is really respecting him and really trying to just wait and see what's going on. But that being said, Errol Spence, his team, I think they played Crawford, man. I really do. Because you got all those guys over there. You telling me nobody could have reached out to Terrence Crawford and said, hey, look, this isn't the route we want to go? That's crazy to me. But anyway, man, without me getting too deep into a subject that we've already, beaten to death as far as Crawford and Spence and the fight and how that went, we already know how it went. But one thing that really got, the other thing that jumped out to me, man, it really got my attention is Crawford saying, everybody was talking about Spence and how hard it was for him to make 147. Crawford said it was easier for Spence to make 147 than him. Now, if that's true, and Crawford may be letting us know that, hey, 154 is probably where he should have been at, and he shouldn't have been killing himself to get down to 147. So as a result, we may see Crawford perform very, very well at 154 pounds when he faces off against Madrimov. We may see, if what he's saying is true, then we may see him perform very, very well. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. I'm in the breeze.